Stay with us, though, here on The Hill. Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us. Is The Hill on NewsNation. So, the third day, not the charm. Tonight, another failed vote to open up the government.
It's all about President Trump and the Democrats needing to pick a fight to satisfy their far-left political base.
The government is shut down right now because Donald Trump and Republicans refuse to provide health care to working-class Americans.
What comes next? Could it be mass layoffs? President Trump posting this video of the man tasked with running the shutdown, Russ Vought, as the Grim Reaper. Is the next message, you're fired? What the White House told NewsNation today when we asked about just that. Also tonight, down goes another one. A drug boat struck by military ammo near Venezuela as the president continues his crackdown on the cartels. How the Secretary of War is now justifying this one. And the next round of clashes. Federal ICE agents facing off with the new round of protesters in Chicago as the head of the Department of Homeland Security is told by local police to take a hike. But first tonight here on The Hill, they are dug in, they're stuck, they're frozen, they're not moving, however you want to describe it, however you want to phrase it. Here's where we are tonight. Another vote to reopen the government fails. No timetable given for when this could end. And then there's an even bigger question for some. When do the layoffs come? Does the White House plan to pull that lever, or is it purely leverage to try to end the stalemate? Our Kelly Meyer starts us off tonight as the president was posting warnings of the Grim Reaper to one of his social feeds today, and that got the attention of the press corps as well. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. The White House continues trolling the Democrats, but hasn't yet followed through on their promise to slash federal jobs because of the shutdown, as you mentioned. The president posted an AI-generated video showing Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought as the, quote, Grim Reaper, as the administration threatens mass layoffs of federal workers and cut to what Trump calls, quote, Democratic agencies. Here's what the White House press secretary said today defending the memes.
The president likes to have a little fun every now and then, and I think both things can be true at the same time. The Democrats have given the administration this opportunity, and we don't like laying people off. Nobody takes joy in that around here, and if you think that, then I think that's very sad. You view the White House and our staff as wanting to put people out of work. Nobody wants to do that, but sometimes in government you have to make tough decisions.
And House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a main character this week in Trump's memes, donning a sombrero and mustache that was notably playing in the White House briefing room earlier this week. He had this response to the memes. Take a listen.
Well, Donald Trump has behaved in a deeply unserious and deeply unhinged manner. And it's evidence of the fact that Republicans have a weak argument.
And the White House telling our Libby Dean today the layoffs are unfortunate and they are something they continue to examine going into the weekend. Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer live tonight on the North Lawn. Kelly, thank you. So here's what we're going to do now. Democrat, Republican. You're going to hear from both sides as this is now day 3 and heading into the weekend. Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, going to join us in a moment. But back with us once again here on the Hill, he is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Republican from Kentucky, Congressman James Comer, back with us. Congressman, thanks for being with us on a Friday night. You're back in your hometown like a lot of folks are. The president is threatening this idea of layoffs. Russ Vought, the Grim Reaper, as he posts the video. Should there be layoffs?
Yeah, I think so. If the government's not funded, then you have to react appropriately. And, you know, I will say this, I've said this many times, we passed a continuing resolution out of the House. Democrats used to support that when they had their president in office, but now that Republicans have our president, the Democrats don't want to do anything to support this president. And they think that they're going to win the messaging war and try to somehow convince American people that for some reason the Republicans have shut the government down when the opposite is true. And I think that if there's no ability for the U.S. Senate to approve a funding bill, then I think the president's going to have to react appropriately and determine who's essential and who's not, and go from there.
So you mentioned the messaging war. I mean, this was the video that the president put out on his own social media feed. Republicans, Congressman, you know this. The president even name-checked Project 2025 the other day. Republicans have been gearing up for this moment potentially for years. You think it should happen the moments before them. Why haven't there been mass layoffs up until this point? The president's teased it. He hasn't done it.
Yeah, well, I think that the Republicans are mixed on the size of government. I think every Republican in Washington agrees with the majority of the American people that our government's too big. We can't continue to spend $2 trillion a year more than we take in, and we have to eliminate waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement in the federal government. Thus far, the first 6 or 8 months, I think Congress has been focused on that one big, beautiful bill, the budget reconciliation bill. We've watched DOGE. Of course, there were issues with Musk abruptly leaving with that. But at the end of the day, I think now's the time to react and to try to eliminate unnecessary government programs. I don't like to see anyone lose their job, but whether you're in the private sector or public sector, there are tough decisions that have to be made. We can't continue to operate in deficits. The Democrats refuse to do their job and govern. So I think now the president has the authority to make some changes.
Here's the statement from Hakeem Jeffries that just hit our inbox, Congressman. He said, Speaker Johnson has canceled votes next week, by the way, that for our audience here on NewsNation or those listening to us on SiriusXM, the House not in session next week as it stands now. Here's Jeffries. He said, Speaker Johnson has canceled votes next week so House Republicans can continue their vacation, deprive Americans of affordable health care, prevent the swearing in of Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva, and stopping the release of the Epstein files. If Grijalva gets sworn in, that discharge petition of the Epstein files goes forward. Is that why Mike Johnson is not keeping Congress in session next week?
No, he's not keeping Congress in session because we've done our job, and the focus needs to be not on anything that we do as far as committee hearings or debating legislation. Needs to keep the government back open. And that responsibility falls on the Senate because the House, we've done our job. With respect to the Epstein files, I'm leading the investigation in the House on the House Oversight Committee. We've gone far beyond what the discharge petition asked. I subpoenaed the estate, the Epstein estate. We got all those documents in. We put them online. We've been very transparent. We're meeting with victims and their attorneys. I've had the Democrats in those meetings. We're bringing people in for depositions like Bill Barr and Alex Acosta and asking them tough questions with Democrats' participation. So this is a bipartisan investigation.
Yeah. Do your investigations slow down at all with the government shutdown? Does that impact it at all? And I know Bill Clinton, you wanted him to testify on the 14th. Which would be 10 days from now or 11 days from now. Where does that stand with the shutdown?
His attorneys are communicating with my attorneys. We haven't got a firm commitment from him, but there is communication, so I'm hopeful. But with respect to your question, it does impact the investigation. I went through this, with an investigation a couple of years ago. When you have to, staff aren't allowed to come in, it makes it very difficult to go through all the documents and do all the things that you normally do, the communication back and forth with the attorneys to try to agree on the terms of depositions, to agree on dates for depositions and or hearings. So it makes things a lot more complicated. So if the Democrats were serious about the Epstein investigation, they would vote to keep the government open instead of vote to close it. Look, there's nothing here. We've already heard from Bill Barr as well as Merrick Garland. Both have indicated that there's no liability from President Trump. The only reason the Democrats keep throwing Epstein out there is they're trying to create a false narrative that Donald Trump has some type of liability. And from what I have seen, which is the same information that the Democrats have received, there's no evidence that Donald Trump has any liability on this. Our priority, the Republicans, is to get justice for the victims who were treated, unimaginably bad and horrible by Epstein and Maxwell.
Got to leave it there. James Comer is the top Republican, the chairman on the House Oversight Committee, with us tonight here on the Hill. Talk again soon, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So I told you I wanted to get the other side as Democrats and Republicans continue to fight over this shutdown. Some of the battles spilled right into the halls of the Capitol earlier this week. Congresswoman Madeleine Dean seen on camera confronting Speaker Mike Johnson. Watch.
The president is unhinged. He is unwell. What are you doing?
A lot of folks on your side are too. I don't control.
Oh my God, please. That performance in front of the generals, that
I didn't see it.
is so dangerous. You know I serve on Foreign Affairs and Appropriations.
Yes.
This is a collision of those two things. Our allies are looking elsewhere. Our enemies are laughing.
With us now, the Congresswoman, Madeleine Dean, Democrat, Pennsylvania. Congresswoman, thanks again for being with us tonight. Mike Johnson, that video went viral there. Do you think he has the power to get a deal done?
Of course he does. He's the Speaker of the House. That is exactly why I spoke to him. And while thank you for covering that small part of our conversation, but our conversation hit 6, 7, 8, 9 points. And my ultimate point was two things. You have the opportunity and the obligation to lead. You're failing to do that. Please lead. And the second thing is be honest with the American people. This nonsense about a clean CR and who shut this thing down. Mr. Comer, that was really sad and disappointing. He said, I wrote it down, he's telling Democrats, we can't continue to operate in deficits. Can't continue to operate in deficits? When they passed the big ugly bill that blew up our deficit by $5 trillion, and they won't extend health care premium tax credits to those who are working poor, that would be $350 billion, less than 1/10 of what we're talking about. Come on, be real. This is so not true.
To be clear and to be real, debts and deficits, as you know, Congresswoman, both parties over several decades to be blamed for where we are now. But I hear your point.
And Republicans far more, which is really stunningly bad.
You mentioned the need to lead. John Fetterman, who's the Democratic senator from your state, voted for this in the United States Senate. What gets you to align with John Fetterman?
Oh, I'm a friend of John Fetterman. I do not control his vote, as you well know. I actually put a call into him this week just to tell him what it felt like on the other side of the Capitol with not a single Republican House member around, other than, obviously, I did have the chance to run into the Speaker. And what I did say to the Speaker was, this is a shutdown of your own making, and you know it. They are in control of the White House, the House, the Senate. So this nonsense, and my constituents here in suburban Philadelphia get it, that somehow Democrats shut this down. They shut it down. And what I politely said to the Speaker is, you shut it down when you sent your members off at least 10 days ago. And now the latest news, as you just broke it, they're not calling us back to session next week.
Yeah, what do you make of that, Congresswoman?
I have a feeling Democrats will be there just like we were there this week, prepared to lead. After all, think about it. The very first meeting of Republican and Democratic leaders with the president in the Oval Office took place on Monday when Speaker Johnson had all of his members scattered across the country, across the globe, vacationing or home. And now he said he's going to do that again for a second week. That's a failure to lead. This is on the Republicans. And I don't even care whose fault it is. I care who's getting hurt. You know who's getting hurt? My constituents. Their health care is at risk. They need to reinstate and make permanent, just like they made permanent. This was their priority. The tax cuts for the millionaires and billionaires, make permanent the tax credits for those who are working.
Told you we wanted to get both sides. Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, Democrat, Pennsylvania. Thank you for the time tonight. Congressman James Comer, if you're just joining us with us, the Republican as well from Kentucky.
Thank you, Blake.
Come on, of course. Come on in, Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff, former budget director. No one in this town knows Russ Vogt better than Mick Mulvaney. Mick, hello. Happy Friday from our Conch Republic Bureau. Thanks for being with us. You know Russ Vogt. You saw the video that your old boss, Donald Trump, put out. And conservatives have been talking about firings for years. This is the moment. It seems to be the chance, if they want to do it, that they can do it, but they haven't done it. Why?
Leverage. I think they're trying to sort of hold it out over the Democrats. By the way, to do exactly what just happened. because that speech that Congressman Dean just gave will be used against a Democrat at some point in the future. Maybe her, maybe somebody else, because eventually the CR, as we've talked about, is going to win out here, and Democrats in the Senate are going to vote for it, at least enough will to pass it. The clean CR always wins out, regardless of which party is pushing it. So it's leverage, and they just figure the more they can drag this thing out, the more they can make political hay out of it.
Tell me, you think this ends by a week from Wednesday?
Yeah, that's the first payday. That's the next pain day. The first pain day is the first day of the shutdown. We've passed that already. The next pain day is when folks are supposed to get paid and they don't. And that's the 15th. Keep in mind, in 2019, when we had that 35-day shutdown, the troops were getting paid. Why is that? Because we had passed a defense spending, a defense appropriations bill. They haven't done that this year. So on October 15th, the men and women defending this country will not get paid for the work they had done the previous 15 days. That's a pain point. I don't think Democrats in the Senate, they'll make their point. They're going to try and continue to beat on health care, as I would if I were they. But I think at the end of the day, they'll claim victory and then vote for the CR.
Mick Mulvaney, I'll catch you next week. Enjoy the weekend, sir. Talk Monday.
Thanks, Berman.
Of course. All right, still to come tonight. Big developments as it relates to the Middle East. Hamas saying it is ready to accept a deal. The president has just put out a statement. I'll show it to you next on the other side of the break. Chris Steyerwalt's coming in. Stay with us. Got images of another one of these today. The U.S. striking another alleged drug boat off the coast of Venezuela. The video, keep watching here. The explosion, killing 4 people as the U.S. is accusing of being narco-terrorists. Just this week, the White House told Congress that the U.S. is in an armed conflict with drug cartels, and there it goes. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, a major development tonight. Hamas announcing it agrees to key pieces of President Trump's peace deal for Gaza, including releasing all hostages held captive since October 7, 2023. Hamas saying tonight it is ready to start negotiating those details. President Trump on social media just a little while ago in response, he believes Hamas is ready for a lasting peace. He says, quote, Israel must immediately stop the bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly. He goes on to say this is not about Gaza alone. This is about long-sought peace in the Middle East. With me now, Chris Steyerwalt, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Doctor, thanks for being in tonight.
Here we are. Peace in our time.
Peace, yeah, exactly. There's movement here. There also, as Lindsey Graham put it, was a yes but from Hamas. And the natural question is, what comes next? What do you think happens from here?
So if Hamas is doing the same thing to the United States that Russia has been doing to the United States,
that's the parallel, right?
Which is, we're eager to talk. We want to talk, but we have to keep doing the da-da-da-da. If that's true, and I don't know that it is, but if it's true, Hamas doesn't have nearly the resources. Hamas doesn't have the resources that Russia does. Hamas doesn't have the resources that the state of Delaware does. Right. Hamas is isolated. Iran is back on its heels. The Arab world, the Sunni world doesn't want anything to do with them. They don't have friends. They don't have resources. And they can play for time if they want to play for time. But if the message from Trump and Israel is, we will decimate. We will roll through Gaza, and we'll evacuate. We'll tell civilians to evacuate, but we're going to kill everything in our path in Gaza. What could Hamas do in the face of that? What's the better deal that they're going to get?
The ultimatum: take the deal. The president says by 6 o'clock on Sunday, or all hell to pay.
Well, what's the deal? What's taking the deal? There's no contract here. There isn't like a line to sign on. And Donald Trump believes that he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to he wants to be the peace president. He wants to do all this stuff. I would imagine that if Donald Trump surely is not as well disposed towards Hamas as he is towards Russia, but I would have to think that he would be interested in looking like the peacemaker here. So I would think he'd be inclined to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
By the way, I just want to show the audience, show the Caroline Leavitt post, if we can. The president just shot, we believe, a video from behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. That is his on-camera statement for Hamas's response. if that video happens this hour, at least it's released, of course, we'll play it back. Let's end real quick, Chris, where I started this segment, Venezuela.
Yeah.
The fourth video of its kind here. I can't imagine this is just the fourth drug boat in the last few weeks, right? So they're releasing. What do you make of them releasing it today in the middle of this sort of this government shutdown?
Our pitiful and craven Congress is so unworthy of this republic and the sacrifices of the men and women who died at arms to defend and protect the Constitution. It's really sad. The President of the United States sent a memo to Congress that said, I've determined we're at war. Now, you and I, you're not as old as I am, but you're old enough to remember there used to be debates about how much authority does the president have, and then they'd have to do some cockamamie. Well, it's actually the authorization of the use of military force, blah, 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 blah.
Back to the
they do whatever they had to do,
right.
but they had to put paper on it. Now, the president says, we're at war against, I don't know what, but we can kill anybody we want that we see in this part of the world. And Congress can't even pass a continuing resolution. They can't do their regular, normal job. And as executive authority gets wilder and wilder and crazier, these folks can only argue with people who are in the opposite party, and they don't stand up for themselves, and they are failing the Constitution, and therefore the Constitution can't protect us.
Catch you later in the show. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Chris Stirewalt with us. All right, still much more ahead here on The Hill. Warnings, protests, and arrests in a Chicago suburb. So that's just some of the scene. And then the DHS Secretary, Noem, tried to go into a government building. We'll show you what happened. .30 here in Washington, 5:30 out in Chicago. Another chaotic day of protests at the Chicago area ICE facility that's serving as the headquarters for Operation Midway Blitz. At least a dozen arrests made today. The protesters heckling at one point the DHS Secretary Noem, who was on site surrounded by armed guards and a camera crew watching it all unfold from the roof. Access to City Hall in Broadview, however, a much different story for the secretary. Noem saying she was barred from entering. It comes as DHS says over 900 people have been arrested so far in those immigration enforcement raids. Federal agents also out in force patrolling the streets of Chicago this week. That is where we find our Alex Capriello in the middle of the action. Alex, the DHS secretary was there. She wanted to go into a government building, and they essentially told her to take a hike.
Yeah, we heard rumblings just last night that Secretary Noem would be visiting Chicago today, but we didn't know whether or not that was just a rumor or not. Turns out it was confirmed when all of a sudden we saw the secretary on top of the building, the rooftop of the immigration facility, essentially accompanied by other federal agents and looking over the newly erected barricades that were right outside that facility. Speaking of which, those concrete barriers are brand new, just put in within the last few hours. Clearly, the federal, local, and state leaders here are bracing for the possibility that things could get violent again between this showdown of federal agents and protesters. Border Patrol agents led by Commander Gregory Bravino gave Noem a show today, advancing on protesters, giving them a stern warning, and then ultimately throwing the people to the ground that did not listen. We know of at least a dozen arrests that happened. We're told that the majority were done by Border Patrol, but also by Illinois State Police, as well as the Broadview Police Department here. On top of all this, Blake, what you mentioned at the beginning here, a little politicking going on between the federal leaders and the local leaders, right? Noem says that she went to the municipal building to have a one-on-one conversation with the mayor here in Broadview about some of the anger and frustration that's boiling over here outside this immigration facility. But at the very same time, I'm speaking to the mayor, and she's telling me she had no idea the secretary would be coming and trying to visit with her, have a conversation or a one-on-one moment, and for that reason, she wasn't even inside the building at that time. Noem later on posting a video showing her actually knocking on that municipal building, but not being let in.
Our Alex Capriello live tonight in Chicago. Alex, thank you. National Guard troops may soon be joining immigration enforcement in Chicago. President Trump already authorizing National Guard deployments in Portland and D.C., and he's teased sending them around the country to other blue cities like Los Angeles, where they were first deployed earlier this year. Amid the shutdown stalemate, the Trump administration has been hitting Democrats where it hurts, pausing multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects in New York and Chicago. Trump Budget Director Russ Vought announcing today that the administration is canceling nearly $8 billion in funding for what he calls the Green New Scam. Those projects all in states that went for Kamala Harris in the past election. Democrats fighting against the president on multiple fronts. Here now with us on the Hill, Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager-Dove, a Democrat from Los Angeles. Congresswoman, nice to see you as always. Thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I know you obviously represent LA. You're from Chicago, as I know it. There was that scene. I watched the video, and they didn't let the DHS secretary into a government building. You think they made a mistake there?
Well, it's always good to be on your show. And as I was listening to that segment, I was thinking about the incident where U.S. Senator Alex Padilla was going into a federal building, actually where his offices were, and was pinned to the ground and arrested with Kristi Noem giving the go-ahead. It's unfortunate that this is how we are seeing the federal government treat cities and other elected officials. But what is equally unfortunate is watching the videos of partially clothed babies being yanked out of their beds at midnight and separated from their families on the south side of Chicago.
To be clear, Kristi Noem didn't give the go-ahead in that video. She was in the room, as you know, and those two ended up talking afterwards, even though it was a disturbing scene there involving the senator. When it comes to ICE, we learned today that Apple and Google have taken down that ICE tracking app. Do you applaud them for that? You believe that's the right move?
Well, I will say Kristi Noem didn't stop the agents from assaulting and arresting a U.S. senator. I do not think that we should be tracking our neighbors and our citizens. I think what America wants is a government that's actually open. They want to be able to have health care premiums that are not going to double. They don't want to be kicked off of their Medicaid and their Medicare. And they also don't want to be tracked by the U.S. government. Last Congress, we were having multiple conversations about FISA, about privacy, about security and safety. And it seems now under this administration, it's all about terrorizing and intimidating and silencing Americans. I mean, it doesn't matter if my neighbor is a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. We all should be safe, and we all should not have to fear something coming from this administration.
You mentioned the government shutdown and the administration basically saying, you know what? We can pull some money from these blue states. You know what? We can pull some money from New York and from Chicago. Does that make you rethink how much longer you want to be involved with a government shutdown?
Well, as I recall, we have Republicans that are controlling the White House, the Senate, and the Congress. They actually have all of the votes to keep the government open. It was the president who actually said don't negotiate with Democrats. But what I also know is there are Republicans and independents that live in these blue cities and states where these infrastructure projects are being paused. I mean, regardless of what party you're affiliated with, we're all using the same highways and freeways. We're all calling the same 911. I mean, these are infrastructure projects that are supposed to benefit the entire community. And so to punish the entire community because you are mad at Democrats, because Democrats are fighting to make sure that your health care premiums don't go up, doesn't make sense to me. That's not how you should be governing and leading as a president.
You are in L.A., as I mentioned, so let me ask you about your governor, Gavin Newsom. He's been pushing back, obviously, against President Trump. Here was one of the most recent posts, a reference to Marie Antoinette. We'll put it up on the screen, and you can see it there. I see you laugh. It's a different tack than, say, Wes Moore of Maryland, or Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, or Andy Beshear of Kentucky. They're not going down that route. So who's got it right, Newsom, or the folks who aren't playing that kind of political game?
My governor is definitely punchy, and I guess I'll say that it takes all kinds of
punchy,
voices,
but is that the right way to handle it?
through.
I guess.
Well, this president likes to be spicy and tangy as well. He posted an AI-generated meme of my leader wearing a sombrero hat, so I assume if you can give it, you should be able to get it.
All right. Sidney Kamlager-Dove, a Democrat out there in the great state of California, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, still to come. Other side of the break, the government shutdown heading into the weekend. No progress, no deals, stalemate, frozen. I don't know. It looks beautiful here in D.C., right? It is. My gosh, we woke up to like 60 today, but they can't figure this stuff out. And among the questions, when will they figure it out? And as we await this video from the President of the United States on possibly peace in the Middle East, we'll take it up on the other side.
Bhatia, this Saturday. He's in charge of Medicare and Medicaid, and now Dr. Oz squares off with Bhatia. Plus, conservative media pundit, author, and lawyer Ann Coulter. Bhatia, Saturday, 4/3 Central on NewsNation.
All right, Capitol Hill looking pretty ominous in that AI-generated video President Trump posting to his social feeds last night. It depicts the Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought as the Grim Reaper, all while the White House threatens massive firings. And as we head into the weekend with no end in sight to the shutdown.
It's all about President Trump and the Democrats needing to pick a fight to satisfy their far left political base.
The government is shut down right now because Donald Trump and Republicans refuse to provide health care to working class Americans.
Second vote today to try to avoid a shutdown. It failed. Is this a case of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me? Over the weekend, nothing scheduled, and the House now doesn't have anything on its schedule for next week. That coming from the House Speaker Mike Johnson. So if there's nothing for the next, call it 8, 9, 10 days, what comes next? Full panel. Here with me now, Bill McGinley, former cabinet secretary in the first Trump administration. Yemisi Egbawali is a Democratic strategist. Chris Stirewalt, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Indeed he is. And Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill. Hello, guys. Happy Friday. Thanks for being with us tonight. So I've heard, Bill, conservatives for a while talk about shrinking the federal government, shrinking the federal government, shrinking the federal government. You could think that's great policy. You could think it's terrible policy. But I watched the President of the United States post a video of a Grim Reaper, and there haven't been mass layoffs. And I wonder why he hasn't done that at this point and what that says about where he actually is tonight.
Look, I think that the President and Russ Vought, OMB director, are looking at what is happening with the budget right now that the appropriations have expired, to see where they can do mass layoffs.
Oh, but
they're starting to pause some of the programs that are wasteful from the holdovers from the Biden era into some of these blue cities where they were getting a lot of pork.
But they've been looking at this for years, I guess is my point. And here's the moment, and they haven't done it, and I'm wondering why.
Right. And remember, DOJ came in and started to do this, but every time they made a move, 15 lawsuits were filed. So some of this stuff is still working its way through the courts. Okay. Now, when you have a shutdown, when the appropriations end, you begin to enter a new area where you may be reallocating some of the funds under the Anti-Deficiencies Act. That gets a little bit technical, but what it means is that when Congress appropriates money, it's usually supposed to be spent that way unless certain procedures are followed. We're only a couple days into this shutdown. The Democrats are showing no discipline. They already had 3 members break and vote with the Republicans to reopen the government. This CR is only 7 weeks long. This is something that probably could be repeated in November.
Is it no discipline, or is it, in a sense, strength because 98% of them are with each other?
I mean, Schumer has to operate from a place of strength and not hope. I think that Schumer would have had his feet held to the fire if he did not show some kind of resolve, given his behavior in March when he did a backroom deal with Republicans.
So then is John Thune right there, where he basically says Schumer's got to do this?
Schumer's got to put up or shut up here. One thing that's the issue that we're seeing with Democratic messaging is a lot of people don't understand why the shutdown is happening. And I don't think Democrats on the House and on the Senate side are all operating under the same moniker. I was a Senate staffer with the first shutdown, spent 35 days out. I knew why we were doing it. I knew why we were there. I think a lot of folks back home don't understand rescissions, they don't understand subsidies, and they just need some plain speak right now.
You know, one of the fascinating things is we haven't seen Donald Trump on camera since this began. And the White House was asked about it earlier today. Here's what they said.
As you all know, because you're here every day, the president is literally working around the clock right now. I think he has a swearing-in ceremony, or he already did. He has several meetings on the books today. He literally works 24/7.
What about that, Niall? Because I saw J.D. Vance come to the podium. I've seen a whole lot of Schumer, Thune, Jeffries, who am I leaving out? The fourth one up on Capitol Hill, but I haven't seen Trump.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, because I don't think he feels all that much pressure to negotiate, to be perfectly honest. I think part of the reason that he has stayed out of the spotlight is he's not really in the mood to make great concessions here. Now, he could be wrong. I mean, that's possible. He could have calculated the political import of this in the wrong way. But it's not like a more conventional presidency, or for a more conventional shutdown for that matter, where you have sort of horse trading going on all the time. Both sides are pretty dug in for the moment.
And it may also be that he wants to see how this is going, and if it's a loser, that J.D. Vance can eat it, and he won't have to. I remember, he let Mike Pence do an awful lot on the pandemic until it was working for Mike Pence, and then Donald Trump said, "Whoa, let me get in there and do that." I don't know. What I expect here is that as we get to the point, and Mick made a great point earlier in the show about when the paydays come and people start missing paychecks, the economic consequences of this are going to be substantial in an economy that has been shedding jobs, and we have an economic slowdown. If you do that and you take all the 2 million people who get federal payroll checks, if you suck that money out of the economy, that will have consequences, and that's something that I'm sure the White House is eager to have.
The other big story is the president saying, Hamas's response to the president's offer, the president's response on social media. Chris, we saw the image that President Trump, that the White House posted of President Trump's video response. I'm told we're probably about a minute out from watching that it's just been put out. This is a big moment here for Donald Trump as he's going to be essentially addressing the Middle East and the world.
What was the biggest foreign policy achievement of the Trump administration first time around? It was the Abraham Accords. It was a big deal, right? And it reshaped the way that the Middle East worked. It didn't work, and this would be every president, right? Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, all have the belief that they could be the one that could put the pieces together in a region that has caused so much heartache for its residents and the people of the world. And obviously, Donald Trump would love to be the guy that said he did it.
There was a sort of like a yes, but from Hamas in their response.
Right. But also think about the imagery here, the messaging. The government is shut down, and Donald Trump could be on the cusp of one of the most important peace deals that we've had in a long time. Is Hamas going to try and hedge their bets? Of course they are. That's what they always do. But the fact that they agreed in principle and want to come to the table on this, in and of itself, is a huge achievement. Donald Trump is pressing for peace. He wants Israel to come to peace. He wants Hamas, Iran, and the regional players to do the same. This has been a major initiative of his, and while the government's shut down, he is on the verge of a major victory.
What if this is able to end? Yemisi, that the hostages come out, that the war stops, and then I guess the next big question is, what does the Middle East look like, or what does that part of the Middle East look like from there? But what if the president and the world leaders involved with this can sort of get it to that point?
Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That is going to be a huge boon for President Trump. I mean, I operated under the Biden administration that tried so desperately to get to some kind of middle ground here and met with the families of the hostages and met with leaders in the Middle East. And so Democrats a little bit muddied on the messaging of this entire shutdown. The president sitting in the White House negotiating peace deals. It's going to put even more pressure on our side of things.
I don't want to be the pessimist, but I wouldn't get too carried away. Peace, the resolution of conflict, very difficult in any circumstances. We have two sides here that are enormously distrustful of each other, understandably, perhaps on both sides, but it is very difficult to get peace in this region, even during the times that Chris was talking about, Yasser Arafat and the White House lawn. That was a time when we were not in the middle of this catastrophe with more than 60,000 people having been killed by Israel.
I'm told we have that statement. Perfect timing, Niall. Here was the president just moments ago.
I want to thank the countries that helped me put this together. Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and so many others. So many people fought so hard. This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down and concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents, because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive. So I just want to let you know that this is a very special day, maybe unprecedented in many ways. It is unprecedented. But thank you all, and thank you all to those great countries that helped. We were given a tremendous amount of help. Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East, and we're very close to achieving that. Thank you all, and everybody will be treated fairly.
President Trump, moments ago, Chris, you have the best Sunday show in the biz. I got to imagine you're going to be talking about this Sunday at 10 a.m.
We will definitely do that. We've got Mike Turner, who was formerly the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He's on armed services now. He's a serious grown-up human being. We've got Jonathan Jackson from Chicago, who can talk about what's going on out there. I'm also interested, we're going to talk about what went wrong in health insurance in America, and we have a good explainer on that.
All right. We'll catch you 10 a.m.
Heck yeah.
The Hill Sunday. Best Sunday show in the biz. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Our coverage continues here on NewsNation. Other side of the break. Stay with us here on The Hill. Been a massive day of news, really, when you think about it. A second vote to open the government fails in that building behind me earlier today. And just moments ago, the President of the United States saying that there could be a deal, that the hostages could be coming home. I'm Blake Berman. I thank you for watching us tonight. Our coverage continues here on NewsNation with Elizabeth right now.